I never ran a bake sale. I never coached the kids in soccer. Writing letters of gratitude is my way of, I don't know, giving back. Every letter I've written has been either mailed or in maybe a dozen cases, handed, left on a bureau, handed to someone. But the vast majority, 260 or 265 of the 280 letters have been put in the mail as a hopefully very pleasant surprise. There's 3 hits of dopamine with these letters. Number 1, when you identify who you're going to write to. Number 2, when you're rereading the letter that you've written. And number 3, when you drop it in the mail. Just write the letter and send it. Now I want to make it perfect. However you do it, whether you do it in 5 minutes or it takes you an hour, it's a creative process. And we cannot get enough creativity in our lives.
And we are live with another episode of Being Human. Delighted to say I'm here with Joel Zuckerman. He's the author of 10 books, including 8 on golf. But the book we're going to focus on today, and which I've read, is Gratitude Tiger, Creating Joy Through the Art of Impactful Letters. Gratitude is a topic very close to my heart. It comes up all the time on this show as being such an important part of human growth and happiness. And so I'm just delighted to have found you and to have the opportunity to speak to somebody who's dedicated so much of their time and their life to this practice of gratitude. So huge, warm welcome and very grateful to have you here, Joel.
Thank you very much, Richard. I'm grateful to be here. We can both use the word grateful between 20 and 45 times over the course of our conversation. And that way we'll pound it into the heads of the listeners.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, with all my guests, I'd love to hear a little bit of your backstory before we get into the meat of this great topic. So, could you tell us a little bit about where you grew up? Something of your early life and what ultimately brought you to this topic.
Okay, I'm originally from Massachusetts. I lived in Georgia for many years, 20 years. I was a golf writer, had some success in that field. Wrote for many publications and ended up writing 8 books and segued to gratitude quite organically and slowly in dribs and drabs. It wasn't like a wholesale change, but my whole life focus changed starting in about 2013. I've been married to my wife Elaine for almost 39 years. We have 2 daughters, 4 grandchildren, a 5th on the way, and we all live now, all of us, in the northern mountains of Utah. So through no master plan, both my daughters, their husbands, and the babies all ended up in either Salt Lake City or Park City. So we're a happy grouping of 10 and another baby coming. So soon we'll have our own football team, American football, 11. I don't even know how many are on a soccer pitch. Is it 10?
There is also 11.
Okay. I apologize for my ignorance. Soccer was just schoolyard for me, so I never even knew what the actual number was. But we're going to end up with either a English European football team of 11 or American football team of 11. And my family being close at hand is another reason that I'm grateful.
Yeah. And you said there's this pivot. Was that when you started to, have greater awareness of the power of gratitude, or what was that pivot?
Well, that's a good story. It's the first chapter of the new book, which is well named The Metamorphosis. So I was a very busy golf and travel writer, traveled the world. I've been to England to play a number of times, and Scotland, and Wales, and Ireland, and many parts of the world. Traveled, writing magazine stories about courses, history, players, and wrote all those books, as I mentioned. And in the fall of 2013, I picked up a super famous, best-selling self-help book called Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. And it's all small stuff. I imagine you heard of it. It sold 30 million copies back in the 90s. And one of the chapters was write a heartfelt letter. These chapters were short chapters, 2 pages long, 2 and 3 pages long, little life hacks to live a better life. The chapter said, write a heartfelt letter. So I said, I can write a heartfelt letter. I'm a professional writer. I write magazine stories and internet stories and books. I thought of someone I wanted to write a heartfelt letter to. In my mind, I transposed the title of the chapter to write a letter of gratitude. It wasn't until I looked at the book again years later, I go, oh, it's write a heartfelt letter. I thought it was write a letter of gratitude. I sat down to write that letter. I typed it on my computer. It never occurred to me I would write another letter. It was just an intellectual exercise. I can do this. This business colleague of mine, this friend of mine who'd helped me in my writing pursuits was the person I decided to write to. And when I put the envelope in the post, I was overcome with a feeling of warmth and connection that I wasn't anticipating. Like I said, I figured I would write a letter and that would be it. But it was an intoxicating feeling to do this gesture of kindness, of communication, to tell someone, I'm grateful to know you. And I wrote another letter, and then another, and then another. Then I wrote my sister, then I wrote my brother, and then it was 20 letters. I remember when I wrote the 50th letter, a couple years in, I put a pinch of confetti in the envelope. And then I was writing about 20 letters, 25 letters a year. Sometimes I'd write 2 letters a week, and then I might not write a letter for 6 weeks, just depending on life circumstance, who crossed my mind.
Right.
And then it was 100. And then after 5 or 6 years, it was 150 letters. And I decided I would write a book called Grateful. And the book would be a compilation of letters that I had written. I decided to write 30 more letters to get to 180. And 2 years later, when I wrote my 180th letter, I put them all in a beautiful hardbound book, 400 pages long, called Grateful. And I thought that would be the end of it. But then I wrote another. It's like an addiction, Richard. Like, okay, I'm done with this. I've written the book. I got nothing more to say. But more people kept inspiring me and showing me a kindness or befriending me. And I wrote another and another and another. Then it was 200, then 250. And then I decided to write a book called Gratitude Tiger to show the world what it's like to undertake this incredibly enriching hobby. And that's the book that you and I will discuss in more detail.
Brilliant. What a fantastic story. And I love how exactly as you told me, this emerged organically. You wrote that one letter and then just something in you, it was just a voice that, hey, why don't you write another one, Joel? Is that how it happened?
It was such an addictive feeling because I'll tell you, Richard, I've never been a coach like a youth sports coach. I've never I'm sorry to admit it, but it's the truth. I've never volunteered in a soup kitchen. I've raised a couple of dollars a few times here and there, but I've never been a PTA bake sale. I never ran a bake sale. I never coached the kids in soccer. Writing letters of gratitude is my way of, I don't know, giving back. I give back one person, or sometimes it's a couple, and very occasionally a group, one letter at a time to tell someone, hey, you're important to me. I'm grateful to know you.
Yeah. And some of those letters are beautiful to all ages. I'm just, as we talk, what comes to mind is the letter you wrote to a 1-year-old.
My oldest grandchild, who's now 5. Yes, it's a good letter. And by the way, I'm glad you mentioned that. That is the only letter of 280 that has never been printed. Why? Because it's a long letter. And all my letters, every letter of gratitude I've written, fits concisely on one page, the front of a piece of stationery. Now, I'm very verbose. I never run out of things to say. So sometimes I have to shrink the print. My typical font is 14 point type, but occasionally I have to go to 12. and even 10 to get it all on one page, but it's just one of my things, one of my quirks. It's always going to be a one-page letter, and that letter to my granddaughter, Leslie Meredith, would have been very close to 2 pages in length. So I wrote that letter specifically for the book Grateful.
Right. Yeah. Uh, and that was all about, well, tell it. This probably segues nicely into this idea of proactive gratitude versus reactive gratitude, which you talk about in the book. Tell us about that.
Well, you're such a good reader. Your reading comprehension is off the charts. I appreciate it. Yeah, that's one of the main points of the book. Every human being is capable of reactive gratitude. The best example is always a benign medical diagnosis. You're worried about a health concern. The doctor says, don't worry about it. It's nothing. Oh my God, I'm so grateful. You avoid an accident on the motorway. I'm so grateful. Your kid gets named captain of the team or gets into their first choice of college. You're grateful. Everyone feels that reactive, adrenaline-fueled gratitude. Proactive gratitude differs from reactive gratitude in the fact that you make a conscious decision to express gratitude to another individual. I substitute the words proactive gratitude and expressive gratitude. To me, they're synonymous.
Yeah.
You must, to live a better life, to live a more happy, enriching, emotionally balanced life, practice expressive gratitude or proactive gratitude. They're interchangeable terms. One of my favorite expressions is by the great American author Gertrude Stein, who said, silent gratitude isn't much use to anybody. Now, all of us feel gratitude for the reasons I mentioned: a turbulent flight that lands safely, a benign diagnosis, as I said, but only by expressing gratitude to people who have helped you will you enjoy the fruits, the benefits of this practice. That is what I've learned since I wrote that first letter in November of 2013. So it's coming up on 12 years. And it completely changed my life, and it changed my professional focus. So I have that bonus also.
Well, talk to me a bit. Like, I get the professional focus. Now, this is a centerpiece of your what you call an enrichment speaker, right? So you speak for a living now, and
Exactly.
gratitude is a central part of what you talk about. You talked about it changed your life. Like, what happened in terms of life changes as you developed this habit?
Well, I was a successful, reasonably well-known golf writer. I wrote some books. Not every book was a huge hit, but some of the books were very well received and widely distributed nationwide and internationally. And consequently, I used to get asked to speak corporate retreats. So golf, which was my former profession, has a very narrow niche. Okay. The wide world does not care about golf. However, if a corporation is going to reward its top executives with a golf jamboree on Hilton Head Island or at Pebble Beach, I might have been asked to come speak to them about the game. And I would talk about the trials and tribulations of Tiger Woods and some of my big heroes in golf like Jack Nicklaus or Tom Watson, and the life lessons that they all taught us through the game of golf. And I had a facility for public speaking. I always have. I've never been intimidated or nervous. I can speak in front of an audience. And for years, I spoke for a nice payday about golf on luxury cruise liners, at corporate retreats, at country clubs, at tournaments. And then, as I started getting more and more into this whole gratitude space, I had an epiphany. I said, I should write a keynote address about gratitude because I can make it funny and uplifting and entertaining and fast-paced, just the way I speak about golf. But instead of 99 out of 100 people running for the exits because they despise golf, theoretically, everyone in the world would be interested in learning more about how to use gratitude for your own benefit. So a couple of years ago, I started working on a keynote, which I titled The 7 Pillars of Expressive Gratitude. And then some of my advisors said to me, you need to write a book because the book will be a calling card for meeting planners and executives and HR professionals to know who you are in terms of gratitude. So that's why I wrote Gratitude Tiger, because 9 out of 10 writers will write a book and then go speak about it. I'm the exception. I speak about gratitude and then wrote a book about it.
Right.
Make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes complete sense. And I get the shift in focus. Yeah, like you're hitting into a universal theme that touches all of us.
I wrote enough
Central.
about golf, man. I wrote and wrote and wrote for the magazines and the newspapers and the websites and all the books. And finally, I had said enough. I said, I got nothing more to say about this game. And the gratitude started to, overwhelm. The gratitude focus started to creep more and more as the golf ebbed. The golf writing ebbed, not to mention the golf writing started to become less remunerative, less lucrative. After the financial crisis of 2008, it didn't happen right away. But in the 3, 5, 6, 7 years after that, pay scales started to go down, magazines started to disappear. I'll give you the best example. There's a very famous American magazine that you've heard of, Sports Illustrated, right?
Yeah.
For decades and decades, it published 52 times a year, plus a couple of special issues. Then they started going every other week. Then they turned into a monthly, and then it went away. Sports Illustrated is example number one that the magazine business changed. They're thinner, they're less advertising, they started to disappear, and the whole golf world started to change, and not for the better. For those like myself who used to chronicle golf, whether the tours or courses or history or resorts. So it was a natural segue to get out of that business. And then I realized there was more fish to fry on the gratitude side of the street. So that was part of the whole equation also.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you talk in the book about, well, you don't go into it at length, but you talk about the benefits of gratitude, the health benefits. Did you experience any benefits in that way from your gratitude practice?
I have a habit that helps me find sleep more easily. You might know this yourself. As you get older, sleep starts to become your skill. Your skill in many things starts to diminish as you get older. My golf game is not what it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And my ability to fall asleep is not what it was 10 or 20 years ago. And that's endemic for many people when they get to a certain age. One of my gratitude habits is called Count Your Blessings. I write about it in the book. I get into bed at night, and as I'm settling in, I recall everything that happened that day that I was grateful for, chronologically, from morning till night. And recounting, and I'm so practiced at this now that my nightly ritual sometimes might be 30 things long that happened that day that I was grateful for. And it helps put you in a somnambulant state. It helps you relax and find sleep more easily. So that is a benefit that I have learned by being a grateful person. I mentioned other gratitude practices that your listeners have heard of. I personally don't indulge in a gratitude journal. I don't write down thoughts of gratitude, but this counting of the blessings is a wonderful, wonderful thing. And so I don't forget anything. I start from morning till night. Like, for example, today we're talking on June 3rd. I started the day with a green smoothie. That will be one of the first things I mention. I'm grateful I had a green smoothie. I was really craving bacon and eggs, but I did the right thing. This podcast interview with you will be on this list. I'm grateful I had a chance to talk to Richard. And as the day progresses, it's early here in Utah. It's
Yeah.
only 10 in the morning, 10:30 a.m. I'm assuming there will be a dozen or maybe 24 things that happen between now and bedtime that I will be grateful for. And I will recount them one by one, and it will help me find a relaxed state. So that is a health benefit that I enjoy every night.
Yeah, and I could just sense the joys. I will recount them one by one. The joy is oozing out of you. So I can't help but think you've become a more joyful person. Or
Oh my God, don't ask my wife. She'll tell you something differently. But which is a great segue, Richard. There's a chapter in the new book, Gratitude Tiger, that's very instructive. It's called Grateful, not Gandhi. Okay. And what that means is you can be grateful and edgy. You can be
right.
grateful and impatient. You can be grateful and irascible. Just because I write letters of gratitude, no one's confusing me with Gandhi, right? I've never been mistaken for Nelson Mandela. I'm the same pain in the ass I've always been. Maybe a couple of the rough edges are slightly buffed out, but despite my many, many shortcomings and faults, at least I'm grateful. You can say I'm this, you can say I'm sarcastic, you can say I'm moody, you can say I'm a jerk, you can say I cut you off in traffic, whatever it might be. I'm not a monk, I'm not beatific by any means, but I am grateful. So say what you want about me. That Joel's a pain in the ass. Oh, a woman came up to me the other day, a friend of my daughter. We chatted for 10 minutes. She says, "Your daughter tells me that you're a lot to handle, but I haven't noticed that." I said, "Okay, thank you." All of this to say that when you add gratitude to your life, when you write letters of gratitude or notes of gratitude, we'll talk more about that in a moment, you will improve. And no matter what your bad qualities are, no matter what kind of difficult person you are, at least you're also grateful. And that's what I hang my hat on.
Yeah, I love that. That makes sense. Well, you just talked about the distinction between notes and letters. And in preparation for this podcast, I was inspired. You inspired me before I even read the book, before this conversation, to start writing notes. And I've been getting cards. And for the last 3 weeks, I've written at least one note every day.
Fantastic.
And yeah, just as you say, it gets addictive. I'm like looking. It's like one of my favorite tasks of the day now is like getting my note written.
Well, tell me this, Richard. The gist. I wrote a 160-page book, and not the thing. It's not a 300-page book. Just like with the golf, there's not that much to say. The philosophy is relatively straightforward about writing letters. So it's not some huge book. And I speak for 45 minutes, but it all distills down to 10 words. Write letters of gratitude. It will make you feel good. So tell me, when you write these notes, are you feeling good when you put them in the post? I'm guessing the answer is yes.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Yes, and it's really extraordinary. And this is something because I've tried gratitude journaling before, as you've spoken. I've never lasted as long with the journaling. In fact, it's never stuck. I've tried it probably 2 or 3 times in my life, and it's just never really stuck. But this, yeah, like I say, I've had an unbroken run of 3 weeks.
Good for you.
It feels right. But then I read the book, and I'm like, oh man, this is about letters, not about notes. And there's a difference, right?
Same difference. All right. There's a chapter in the book called 7 Paragraphs, 7 Sentences, 7 Words. And what that chapter details is that because I am a professional writer and extremely effusive. You and I have been chatting for 10 or 15 minutes. You can see that I'm not an introvert. I'm very gregarious person. And as I said a few
You're
minutes
not that.
ago, it's not, can I fill the page? It's, I better shrink the type so it can
Yeah.
all fit on one page. But that's me. Most people do not have the bandwidth, the time, the creativity, the energy, or the desire to wax rhapsodic on the page. So just in 2024, I'll give you an example. I wrote a ton of letters in 2024. I referenced in various letters Tony Soprano, Bill Withers, the Hollies, Barry Manilow, uh, who knows who else, just weird pop culture references that came into letters of mine. Okay. Because these letters that I write are streams of consciousness. I'm sharing my gratitude to you, but I'm also sharing random thoughts that are coming in my head. Most people are not wired that way. So I write 7 paragraphs, but you could write 7 sentences. And by the way, you can show deep gratitude in 7 words. And I'm happy to share with you some examples.
Please do.
In the work setting, so one of the chapters in the book is called Gratitude in the Workplace. And I
Yeah.
posit that showing gratitude will help you retain employees. When I speak to groups, I say, who's got a problem with employee retention? Everyone raises their hand. I say, you don't have a problem with employee retention. You got a problem with employee defection. Let's call it what it is. So if you can't give big raises and bonuses, I posit that if by showing gratitude to your people, letting them know that you see them and value them, you will help build morale and maybe keep them around a little bit longer. So here's a couple of
Well,
examples
just
of,
quickly on that one, Joel, and
yeah,
performance. In research, in prep for this interview, I found this study by Harvard and Wharton, and they looked at to supervisors sending notes of gratitude or expressing gratitude to their employees. It's a 50% improvement in performance
really.
for the supervisors who did that. And I've seen other studies like that where they've done not just boss to supervisor, but just if you send any email to anyone in your organization acknowledging them or being grateful, and that was a practice they developed in this organization, they saw these massive business impacts. So there's studies out there.
Will you do me a favor and I'll remind you later via email? Can you send me a link to that study? I would
Yeah.
love to put it in my presentation. I had not heard that. I do use some statistics from Deloitte Consulting and Gallup polling, but I would love to see what you just mentioned to me. All right,
Sure.
let me give you some examples. 7 words that will change the trajectory of one of your employees' careers. This department would not run without you. Boom. That's it. You are the cog in the machine. You're going to blow them out of the water. Send it via Slack, by text, by email. That's all you have to say. You can say, you are the best hire we've made. You are going to get they'll be willing to run through a wall for you. And by the way, it doesn't have to be in the professional setting. You can write 7 words of gratitude to a loved one. You are the finest daughter I could imagine. I love you and cherish you always. You don't have to be Shakespeare or Joel Zuckerman or Gertrude Stein or John Steinbeck to write letters or notes of gratitude. You can do it very pointedly, very quickly and powerfully. And by the way, I have to share an anecdote with you that you'll love. I was speaking to a very high-powered group of YPO. YPO is, I think, an international organization. It stands for Young Presidents Organization. Or
Okay.
cynically, they're called Your Papa Owned It. YPO, whatever, however you want to look at it.
Right.
Speaking to some bigwigs in San Diego, California, and I give them the line about 7 words. And someone comes up to me afterwards and he says, boy, that's so wonderful. I never thought of it. But if I'm that praiseworthy, if I'm that praising, they're going to come after me for a raise. So I said to him, okay, you can spare 7 words. Can you spare 14 words? He said, yeah, sure. I said, try this. You are the cog in the machine, but there's always room for improvement. So that's going to mitigate the guy coming after him for a raise. He loved that. And I use that in every speech now. And when I speak to corporate groups, they laugh and they laugh. There's always room for improvement.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
So,
love that.
Richard, let me encapsulate that. You don't have to be a professional writer to show gratitude. You can do it in a couple of sentences. What are your notes? Are they typical a paragraph? 3, 4, 5, 6 sentences?
Yeah, probably like 4 or 5 sentences. Yeah.
There you go. I indulge my creativity when I write someone, but you don't have to be. So you mentioned my letter to my granddaughter in my book, which I appreciate. I adore that. I adore that little girl, and I adore that letter that I wrote on her first birthday.
It's
And
my favorite letter from the book. Yeah.
you're not the first person who said that. So there's 12 letters in the book. So there's 12 letters from my archive, one from each year that I've written, 2013 through 2024. Me being a numbers guy, I'm going to stop with 10 books. And I love the fact that there were 12 years of letters. 2013 through 2024 is 12 years. So I picked out 12 letters, and someone could read the book and be impressed or appreciate my letter writing skill with these various letters that I show in the book, one from each year, 2013 to 2024. But that doesn't mean that you have to write with that type of, I don't know, grandiosity, showing off your vocabulary. You don't have to mention Bill Withers or the Hollies or Elvis Presley or Tony Soprano. You could just write 4 or 5 sentences like you're doing, and you're appreciating the benefits of reaching out in this manner.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure if I was just doing like one sentence, you talk about 7 words. I'm sure if I was doing 7 words and it was just text messages, I'd still be getting the buzz.
You'd be getting what?
I'd still be getting the hit, right?
The dopamine hit.
The being hit, yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's a great line I like. It's attributed to different writers. If I'd had more time, I would have written you a shorter letter. So in other words, brevity is the soul of wit, right? Goes to show I'm not that witty because my letters are typically 7 paragraphs long. But like I said, I I never am at a loss. I always have something to say to the person. And it's not just, I love you, I cherish you, you're the greatest. The letters are stories about our relationship, or in the cases of very tangential relationships, I go off and talk about mutual friends or mutual business associates, but I just feel compelled to write a full page letter, and I've not failed yet. I don't think I will. I don't think I'll ever have a writer's block when it comes time to writing letters of gratitude, because I can
Well, that was
always,
Sorry.
yeah.
That was one question I had was, has there ever been a situation where you've just been like, I can't do this. I just can't be grateful to this person.
Pretty good question. Let me put it this way. You're asking a question that's a kissing cousin to another question I've gotten, which is, are there any letters of gratitude you sent that you regret?
Okay.
Very similar type question. And I can answer both your question and that great question from a recent interview. I've never written a letter that at the time I sent it, I regretted. Okay. And answer to your question, if there's someone that I have mixed feelings about, they are very unlikely to be on the list of getting a letter of gratitude from me. And I should add this right now. Can you text it? Yes. Can you email it? Yes. I prefer to type, what's the word process? Showing my age, I want to say typewrite. Okay. I prefer to word process, print my letters, print them out, stick them in an envelope, mailbox stamp. Why? Because it's more formal and more ceremonial. And it shows the recipient that I've gone the extra mile to get their address, trudge to the post office or the mailbox, get a stamp, and send it in the mail. Because most people, I don't know how it is in the UK, I can't imagine it's any different than it is in the US. Most of our mail is a bunch of junk. Bills, circulars, catalogs, adverts. And to get a letter in the mail when it's not Christmas, when it's not your birthday, when it's not Father's Day is impactful. And that's why every letter of gratitude I've written, other than the one you mentioned to my granddaughter, which was never printed out, just in the book, Grateful, and also in the book Gratitude Tiger. Every letter I've written has been either mailed or in maybe a dozen cases, handed, left on a bureau, handed to someone. But the vast majority, 260 or 265 of the 280 letters have been put in the mail as a hopefully very pleasant surprise to the recipient.
Yeah, beautiful. And I've got a question in terms of your own development through this, because there is all this expressiveness in the letters, and I just wonder what have you realized about yourself through the process of all this letter writing?
I guess I would answer that by saying I have learned that expressing gratitude to others benefits myself. And you've learned writing notes to your friends, family, colleagues, whoever you've been writing to, makes you feel good. I've learned that going above and beyond what most people are willing to do, has, on the one hand, sometimes you feel embittered that other people don't extend themselves like you do. My wife is very much like me. We both extend ourselves to people. And a lesson that I cannot seem to learn, we've all heard this, I cannot seem to absorb this into my skin. Don't expect too much from people, and then you won't be disappointed. There's many ways of saying it. You've heard that before, of course, right?
Yeah.
Right? Don't expect much from people. And that way, you won't be disappointed. It makes sense on logically, but I find it hard to internalize that, because one of my many, 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 many faults, as we were talking about earlier, the irritability and the impatience and everything else, is I get bummed out by people who I feel don't do the right thing, that can't extend themselves in the way that you are now doing, and as I've been doing for all these years. So I wish, one of my most fervent wishes is to just say, you know what? People are people. Most of them, they're preoccupied, they're busy, they're dying, they're trying to stay ahead, they're clawing. As an Englishman once said, most men lead lives of quiet desperation. I don't know who said that. Was it Thoreau? Any idea?
I'm not sure who said it, but
It's such a great and such a true expression. Most men, see, talk about misogyny. When this was said 50 or 100 years ago, they weren't talking about people. Most men lead lives of quiet desperation. So the point being, people don't have the bandwidth to be nice, to be grateful, to be kind. They're too caught up in their own lives. But it's still a difficult lesson to learn. And I learn it daily, weekly, monthly, that you put yourself out there, you put out, and friends of mine, much more evolved friends of mine, Richard, have said, do what you do just to put out positivity in the world. Don't expect put out positivity in the world and it'll come back to you, but it won't come back to you from the people that you hope it will. It'll come back in general, but karma and all that, right? Karma will get you or help you. But it's a harsh lesson to learn. that most people are not willing or able to extend themselves or show gratitude the way I do, the way you are learning to do, the way other evolved people, my wife Elaine is a good example, doing for others. And not to say that there are millions and millions of people who are very giving and loving, but I think the vast majority are tied up in their own world, tied up with their own problems.
Yeah. And what was the step? Was it about 30? What was the percentage of people who replied to you acknowledging the letters?
You love to hit the sore spots, don't you? So I've written 280 letters, give or take, and I've heard from maybe 70, 80 people have acknowledged it. So the percentage is about 30%.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And
Yeah.
it's difficult. It doesn't mean that they don't appreciate it. I tell a story. You'll appreciate this. I'm quite certain. My wife's best friend received a letter from me years ago, probably in 2014, going through a horrible divorce after 30 years. And I wrote her a letter of admiration / gratitude, grateful to know her, a rock, a real person of substance, didn't get down in the dirt, slinging mud at her ex-husband and everything else. I was compelled to write her a letter. She's never mentioned the letter to me, ever. I've been with her 10 times, maybe 12 times in the last 10 years. Never came up. But she said to my wife, Elaine, Joel's letter took my knees out from under me, which is an expression you don't hear every day. Joel's letter took my knees out from under me. So my point is just because someone doesn't feel comfortable, they don't want to get too deep and acknowledge. It's nice. What I prefer is someone texts me, hey, I got your letter the other day. What a nice surprise. Boom. I don't need a singing telegram, Richard. I don't need a bouquet of roses. Just let me know the letter got there. But in the case of my wife's friend, let's call her Hillary, the letter had a profound impact on her. She chose not to mention it to me because the subject matter was sensitive or whatever reason, but it had an impact on her. And she shared that with my wife, didn't share it with me. So when I send letters out, I'm assuming they are doing a little bit of good in the world. They are sending a ray of hope or sunshine or gratitude to someone. And that's all you can hope for. Me being me, I'm hoping they'll send me a text. Hey, got your letter. I always thought you were kind of a jerk. Boy, this really surprised me. But let me tell you, practically speaking, the U.S. Postal Service has a 99% success rate in delivering mail, which means that 2.8 letters of mine have not reached their destination, right? I sent 280, so 2 or 3 letters never got there.
Right. Yeah. And it's funny that you mentioned that because I've sent, what have I sent now? Because I've been doing on every working day, like these notes. So maybe I've sent getting close to like 15 notes now. So
That's so great.
0 for 15 in terms of like people saying, hey, I got your note.
Really?
And
Really?
I was like letting myself off. Oh yeah, but yeah, like maybe a lot of them got stuck in the post, and maybe some of them didn't make it. But of course, I'm sure our postal system's about the same, right? Like 99 point something probably get through. So they're pretty much all got there. But yeah, you're right. But the reflection that comes to me as we're talking is like gratitude is a practice, and most people aren't practicing it.
No.
So we can't have an expectation that somebody's going to be like, oh, well, I'll put Richard's note in the queue for me expressing gratitude today. You know, it's just people just aren't in that space, right? I think the fact it's become this topic and we talk about gratitude journaling and so on is because it requires something of each of us to develop this capacity.
It's true. And what will make people become more grateful, and this is the message that I'm trying to beat into these thick skulls of people wherever they might be. You show gratitude for yourself. Everyone in the world outside of the late Mother Teresa or some monks up on a hillside monastery, 99.8% of people are extremely self-involved. And I am no different. I say this in the book, and I say this every time I speak. 5 words describe almost everyone. What's in it for me? What's in it for my family, my business, my friend group, my association? When you write a letter of gratitude, what's in it for you? I'll answer the question. What's in it? You want me to write a letter of gratitude to my college roommate? I haven't spoken to him in 25 years. What's in it for me? I'll tell you what's in it for you. You send that letter to your college roommate. Begin the letter by saying, "Dear Bill, I know you're shocked to be hearing from me, not to mention the fact you probably think I'm only capable of writing a grocery list." Little humor is always good, little self-deprecating humor. I want you to know I'm grateful how you got me through fraternity rush. I'm grateful for that spring break trip we took to Myrtle Beach. Whatever you put in the letter. Why do you do it? What's in it for you? It makes you feel good. Bill, your college roommate that you haven't spoken to in 20 years, is going to be blown away to hear from you when you tell him you're grateful. I'm grateful to know you. We should try and get together again in the future. Maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. You're writing a letter expressing gratitude to your old college roommate. He's going to be blown away. But the reason you wrote it was for yourself. That's what's in it for you. You're going to feel good when you reach out to your cousin, your grandmother, if she's still alive, your old boss, and your first job, whoever it is. God knows. Richard, I go out and speak, and I usually do a Q&A afterwards. The first question I get 7 out of 10 times. You've written 280 letters of gratitude? I don't know 280 people. I shrug, and I say, well, I keep people in my life. I've tried to over the decades. I've got friends. I still have friends. I was communicating with a friend the other day. We've been friends since we were 5 years old. Now, I don't
Wow.
see much of her. She lives in Maine. I live in Utah. Our paths don't cross, and we don't communicate much. It's not like we're texting on a weekly or monthly basis, but we're still friends. There's comfort in having a friend from your, not even youth, from your basically toddlerhood. And I've got friends from grade school, high school, college, this job, this industry, this work. And I just like to keep people, that's why I always quote Don Corleone in my letters. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
Right. Yeah.
Remember that line? It's one of the classic lines in The Godfather.
Oh, God.
So
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
I
And
don't
your
have
letters
I don't
are
have
so
many
funny.
enemies. I don't have
Yeah.
many enemies, I don't think, but I like to keep my friends close.
Yeah. Well, what the other thing that's emerging as you're speaking is, yes, there's this benefit, immediate benefit of the gratitude that I feel and how that affects my physiology and my well-being. There's the benefit over there, that individual receiving it. And as we've just talked about, that might improve their performance even in a business context. But then there's something else here, which is connection. Through creating these letters, I'm maintaining connections across my friendship groups, across my family groups, across my business acquaintances. And we know that simply being in connection with others is a source of well-being and happiness. So we've
Couldn't it,
got that as well.
you're 100% right. And by the way, the last chapter of Gratitude Tiger is called Finishing This Text with a Word About Texts. And what that chapter discusses is a lesson my father taught me many, many years ago, which is if you can do someone a favor and it's not a back-breaking request, always do it. Always help someone out. If they ask you for whatever mundane thing, be receptive. Have your default be yes, not no. And what does that have to do with texts? Not everyone has the time, interest, effort, stamps on hand to write a letter, but you can always text people in your orbit. It has 2 benefits. Number 1, you're going to feel good you reached out to someone. Number 2, you're forcing them to think about you for only a second or 2 before they get back to their busy lives or back to daytime television, whatever they're doing. But when you send a text to someone that you haven't been in touch with in a year or 5 years, and you just say, "Hey, Richard, how's it going? I was thinking about you the other day. I figured I'd drop you a quick line." It takes you literally 5 to 10 seconds to text them, and you force them to think about you. They get a text, "Richard Atherton. Oh my God. Hey, he's checking in to say hello." Maybe, maybe they'll text back, or maybe they won't. And you try not to be glum if they don't text back, but at least you put out a little bit of positivity. You put out a tiny ray of gratitude out in the world, and maybe they'll respond, and maybe you'll resurrect a friendship, or maybe you won't. But for the effort to send a text, and effort is the wrong word, for the minimal, almost infinitesimal effort to send a text, you should let it rip.
Right. Yeah. Love it. Now, for all my technologically minded listeners, they're going to be thinking, okay, hang on, let's do the maths here. Well, if I can write, 100 thank yous a day, and maybe that's going to improve my life and the performance of my business. Can I just ask ChatGPT to write them?
You did take a look at my book, didn't you? Probably the cutest, cleverest chapter name in the book is AI, I. And in that chapter, I make a case for not using AI to write a letter of gratitude. If you have that little creativity, go buy a Hallmark greeting card. That's all. Go to the local drugstore and buy a card that's pre-printed and write, "Dear Richard, thinking of you." And it has a little, you know what I'm talking about, a little poem and a little
Yeah.
picture on the front, and just stick that in the mail. You shouldn't need AI. Now, you shouldn't need AI. The new book, Gratitude Tiger, has a chapter called 10 Concepts to Jumpstart Letters. These are ways that anyone who's not a good writer or doesn't feel a creative streak bubbling within themselves to be able to write letters. Let me give you a couple of examples, okay? Even though you didn't ask. I'll give you a couple quick examples.
Now, these are going to be really helpful for people.
Yeah.
Especially those who are thinking, "Oh, I'll get AI to write mine."
Yeah, no, please. Don't get AI. Don't get AI. Just go buy a Hallmark card like your Aunt Edna gave you at Christmas with a 5-pound note. I mean, come on. Anyway, that's me with my prejudice about it. So here's a couple ideas you can think about, okay? Reference the surprise in the first couple of sentences. "Dear Sandy, I know you must be shocked to see my name in the return address area. We haven't spoken in 7 or 8 years. But I want you to know that I'm grateful for our friendship, even though we've been out of touch for a long time," etc., etc. So one of the concepts is reference the surprise. Second concept. And God, I'm not going to give you 10. I can't remember 10, and I don't have the book open in front of me. But 2 or 3 pop into my head. Tie the letter of gratitude or the note of gratitude to a holiday that's forthcoming. The first letter that I wrote was in November of 2013. And I wrote, "Thanksgiving is coming, and you are one of the many people in my life that I am thankful to," or something along those lines. Christmas is around the corner, and in this season of good tidings and joy, I want to express my gratitude. I took this so far, Richard, that I once wrote a letter to one of my buddies. "Jimbo, dear Jimbo, it's Veterans Day. And as one of my veteran friends, I wanted to share my gratitude with you." So it's one thing to tie it to a national holiday, but it's another thing to tie it to a birthday, a wedding day, or an anniversary. Okay. You made reference to my letter to my granddaughter, Leslie. that I wrote on the occasion of her first birthday. Dear Leslie, today you turn 1. And I recently celebrated a milestone birthday myself. Our birthdays are only 10 days apart. I've written letters to friends of mine on their wedding day.
Right.
So never mind a national holiday or even a birthday that occurs annually, you can sometimes tie a letter to a once in a lifetime occasion. A third tip I could give you. So number 1, reference the surprise of the letter. 2, reference or tie the letter to a holiday or a special day in their lives. And I'll give you one more. Start by professing gratitude for a specific reason and then segue into greater sense of gratitude. I'll give you an example. I once wrote a letter, it's actually in the book, to my friend Susan. Thank you for hosting us at the concert up in your beautiful hometown of Charleston. But this is not just a thank you note, Susan. It's a letter of gratitude. And my gratitude goes above and beyond your consummate hosting and the concert tickets. I want to thank you for this, for being this wonderful person, your philanthropic bent, your trials and tribulations that you've come through, smelling like a rose. So Richard, picture a funnel. The top of the
Right.
funnel
Yeah.
is thanking them. Thank you for dinner. The food was delicious, but this is more than a thank you note. You have been a friend to me for 20 plus years. I want to thank you for the wonderful gift you gave me. It will really come in handy. But beyond that, I want to thank you for being such a solid sounding board for all these years. So you start off small, specific, and then segue into wider gratitude. So those are 3 tips that anyone can use. Reference the surprise of the letter, reference the holiday. If you want to tie a letter to a holiday, a birthday, an anniversary, a wedding day. And thirdly, start specific and then go into a general sense of gratitude. So those are 3 of the 10 concepts that I use writing letters.
I love that, and I can imagine for the people who who challenge themselves. Right, I'm not going to ask AI. I'm going to do this. I'm not creative. Yeah, I can imagine those are really going to help. And get the book because there's that whole list
and
of ideas.
again, let me reiterate what we chatted about a little bit ago. You don't have to write chapter and verse. You can make it short and to the point. So I was giving you 7-word examples, right? 7 words in the workplace, 7 words to a loved one. How about 7 words to a friend? You have been a great friend to me forever. I can't imagine finishing the project without you. Gosh almighty, we had a great time at the game last week. All right, they're more than 7 words, 10 words. Who cares? The point is you can knock it out in less than half a minute. Put it in the post. And if you don't want to spend time and money on stamps, you can text it. You're not going to have the same feeling. I mean, I'm assuming the letters you're writing are cards that you're putting in the mail.
Yeah. Physical cards.
There's just a difference. You know what the difference is? And I think I put this, I think I make this I think I use this in the chapter AI, which is this. And here's a really good analogy that your listeners can understand. Say you're hosting a dinner party, right? You're a good cook. You know how to do it, but you run out of time that day. You can't get to the store to buy the supplies. You go to the gourmet market, buy an entree, a couple of sides, go home, throw the plastic away, put it all on plates. Everyone has a great time. The wine is flowing. Conversation is good. They're complimenting you left and right for the dinner. They didn't know that you bought it at the store, but
Right.
you knew. You knew you didn't put out your best effort. That's what using AI is like. Yeah. Could you ask AI, write a letter of gratitude to my friend Richard Atherton? Yeah. It is done. Boom. But you're a fraud. You're a fakir. You didn't do it. The
Yeah.
reason you do this, the reason that you're doing what you're doing, what I've been doing for 11 years, is because it makes you feel good. You're not going to feel good when you ask AI to write Richard Atherton a letter of gratitude. You'll feel
Right.
good that Richard thinks more of you. Like, oh, what a great guy Joel is. Look what he sent me. But deep down, you're a fraud. That's the number one reason to not use AI.
And by the way, and I just love that analogy, and it can be applied to anything. That use of AI is very much like buying a packet meal and
Yeah,
passing it off. Yeah,
you
no,
know, it's not like you're not going to have a good dinner party. People will chit chat, they'll drink some wine, the food's good, but deep down, I really didn't do the right thing. I had to fake it. So that's how I feel
yeah.
about AI.
Yeah, well, I think the other thing it touches into is you've not developed any artistic aptitude, right? Like if I craft a dinner, I've developed myself. Like I've
Yeah.
engaged in art.
Yeah.
I've lit up that part of my brain that has me be creative, and that's where I'm getting a lot of the dopamine from. So it's a great analogy.
And by the way, so let me make 2 points. One is there's 3 hits of dopamine that hit you with these letters or notes. Number 1, when you identify who you're going to write to. Number 2, when you're rereading the letter that you've written. And number 3, when you drop it in the mail. Now, there could be a fourth. Maybe they'll acknowledge you, but as we've discussed, it's not going to happen too often. So stick with the 3 hits of dopamine. When you identify who you want to write to, when you are reviewing the finished letter, and when you drop it in the mail. There's a feeling of accomplishment when you do that.
Yeah.
And by the
Yeah.
way, I have to mention, you just made a great point about creativity. The 7 pillars of expressive gratitude, which we can talk about or not. It's all in the book, and it's the gist of what I speak about. But one of the pillars is writing letters is a creative process. And
Yeah.
I say, I don't care if you're a sculptor, a novelist, a poet. We all need more creativity. And the act of sitting down and writing a letter, whether it's 7 words, 7 sentences, or 7 paragraphs, whether it takes you 2 minutes or 30 minutes. Or for some people, my brother-in-law has gotten into this. He's become a big fan of this, and he writes it and he rewrites it. I go, Michael, don't overthink it. Just write the letter and send it. No, I want to make it perfect. However you do it, whether you do it in 5 minutes or it takes you an hour, it's a creative process. And we cannot get enough creativity in our lives.
Yeah. Touche. I love that. Something that I was present to is that, I don't think I could have done this in my 20s or even in my 30s. Like I've done a lot of work on myself, and as I've come to love myself more and accept myself more and done a lot of healing work, it's easier for me to feel gratitude for my life and for others around me. And so I just wondered, do you encounter people who are just like, oh, Joel, my life sucks. I've really got nothing to be grateful for. I just can't bring myself to even contemplate that. Do you find people in that state? And if so, how do you help them?
Oh my God. I can see you've done 300 episodes or more. I mean, you really know the right questions to ask. I don't know a lot. I would say this, no matter how bad you think you have it, many, many, many millions, hundreds of millions have it so much worse. You can always find a ray of hope, a ray of gratitude. I'm going to give you an example. My new book, Gratitude Tiger, is mostly 8-page chapters. There's one very long chapter called Grateful When the World is Hateful. And in that chapter, I chronicle the trials and tribulations of friends of mine or acquaintances of mine who are dealing with the worst things in the world, yet find gratitude. One of the stories in that chapter is a friend of mine named Pam Graboff, who had ALS. I said she had ALS because she died on May 31st. She died 2 days ago.
Oh, Joel.
I looked back I wanted to write a letter of gratitude / condolence to her family. Her family has embraced me. Pam and I were never that friendly. We knew each other from 8 years old, graduated high school together, but I never had a relationship with her. Only when I heard she got sick with ALS have I infiltrated her world and tried to bring her some joy. Pam Graboff's story is in my book, in the chapter, Grateful When the World is Hateful. And this woman who died 3 days ago had a sense of gratitude and a sense of serenity, dealing with complete quadriplegia to the point where eventually she couldn't eat and eventually she couldn't swallow and eventually she couldn't breathe, which is why she died 2 days ago. She lasted 6.5 years. I looked back in my archive. She died exactly 6.5 years after I wrote her a letter of gratitude. She died. I heard about her death on June 1st of 2 days ago. I wrote to her December 1st of 2018. So this woman lasted 6.5 years with ALS. I wrote to her to express my gratitude for knowing her and her can-do attitude, literally 6.5 years to the day before I heard about her death. And this woman could find gratitude listening to the bird song in her power wheelchair. She could find gratitude in the loving kindness of her caregivers. She could find gratitude in the fact that she was raising money for the ALS Foundation in her home state of Georgia. So if Pam, who was cut down in the prime of life, captain of her college tennis team, by the way, could find gratitude, all of us can find gratitude, no matter how difficult your life is. And a couple of the people in that chapter have lost their children, the worst nightmare you could imagine. And they have found gratitude in reminiscing about their child, starting charitable foundations in their honor. So no matter how miserable you are, how much your life sucks, there is always something to be grateful for. And if you can focus on that, and if you can show gratitude to others, you will feel better. I said this at the beginning of our conversation, Richard. I'm not a preacher. I'm not a priest. I'm not a rabbi. I'm not an imam. I'm not a PhD. I'm not a behavioral therapist. I'm someone who learned gratitude from the ground up, and it made me a better person. Not a perfect person by any means, but a better person. And that's really the message that I'm trying to impart.
Thank you. Yeah. Wonderful answer. Thank you. Okay. Wow, Joel, we've had a fantastic conversation. Is there anything I've missed? Is there anything you would have liked to have touched on?
Yes. To all your listeners, go to gratitudetiger.com and hire me to come entertain, uplift, and inspire your audience. I have really good testimonials on the website. The new book is Gratitude Tiger. It's funny, it's fast-paced. As of this writing, as of this conversation, unanimous 5-star reviews on Amazon. Still a relatively small sample size. I'm not telling you I've gotten 7,000 reviews and they are all 5-star. I hope someday I have 7,000 reviews and 95% of them are 5-star. But currently, unanimous 5-star reviews. And it's a good book. And it's, as you've seen, it's gives you, the reader, a different perspective on life and how to be grateful to improve your own life. And that's the message that I try to impart both in the book and when I speak to groups. I speak at corporate events, nonprofits, wellness resorts. And it's a message that I'm going to continue to share. And I will conclude by saying, I will never, ever stop writing letters of gratitude. One of my biggest fears is running out of people who have helped me. As long as I'm living, I will reach out and let people who have helped me know that I'm grateful for their presence. And that's really the sum and substance of it all.
Yeah, wonderful. What a message. Here's to the next 280 people.
I'm hoping to get to 300. I'm at about 280, 278. And it ebbs and it flows, man. I'll tell you. My book, Grateful, came out in 2020. I only wrote like a dozen letters in 21. I only wrote like a dozen letters in 22. But in 2024, I had an injury. I had an accident that befell me, and it brought me to the computer 40 times. So I wrote more letters in 2024, the 12th year of this hobby, than I had in any year previously. So you never know who's gonna strike your fancy.
Yeah, love it. Okay, thanks once again. We'll put the links to gratitude.com, obviously in the show notes, the book itself.
Yeah, gratitudetiger.com.
Right, gratitudetiger.com.
Yeah.
And I must add my 5 stars to the.
Oh, thank you.
Although you gave me the copy, right? I've not bought it on Amazon, but I will publicly declare my 5-star review.
I appreciate
here
it. And by the way, Rishi, before we go, this didn't come up. It normally comes up very, very quickly. Tiger. Nothing to do with Tiger Woods. Okay, I was in the golf business for all those years. Tiger and I came up together, although he had slightly more success than me in the golf business. We don't have to get into all that. Tiger is an acronym. It means tapping into gratitude engenders rewards. Tapping into gratitude engenders rewards. It's a fancy way of saying it's better to give than to receive. When you give gratitude regularly and often, you will be rewarded. That's where the acronym TIGER comes from. And I realized as I was looking for a website a few years ago, that would be a catchy one, Gratitude Tiger. And that's why the book and the website are called Gratitude Tiger, because of that acronym, tapping into gratitude engenders rewards. That's the last thing I wanted to tell you.
Okay. Thank you for getting that in. Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks once again, Joel.
Hey, it was my pleasure.
Awesome.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.